that helps. Welcome to the Implementation Committee of the State Allocation Board. This is our first meeting, which will be webcast. So what we're going to do is ask the membership and the audience. I believe we have a microphone up here for audience to come up and ask questions and comments. Unfortunately, we don't have a mobile microphone. I think we're trying to get some for that purpose, so we can maintain the informal tenor of the implementation committee. Let's see. We have an email for those listening and watching in your offices or at home. For comments, we're trying to make it so that the email goes out with the notices so that people can review the agenda and ask questions or make comments or suggestions based on the information they've received. And the idea or the hope is that for comments and questions we get prior to 5 p.m. the night before the implementation committee, that staff will be able to address some of the questions and answers at the meeting the next day. Input can be added at any time and after the meeting, so staff will be looking at that and trying to address the questions in any subsequent discussion and write-ups. The email is, for those of you that don't have it at home, I'm not sure if it was posted to the website, but we're working on that right now. It's sab-imp@dgs.ca.gov. That's sab-imp, as in Paul, at dgs.ca.gov. Thank you. Another item is that we will not be hearing the facility hardship request item number 2, the checklist, or also the improved appeal request form 189, based on a request from a state allocation board member. The issue it's been requested that the issue be further vetted in other meetings. Apparently there's broader issues than just the form with that particular issue. So thank you for that. Sorry we didn't get that information out sooner to you. It was just decided last evening that was going to be pulled. So hopefully we can get this committee done. We only have the one issue by noon. And just for those at home who are not familiar with the Implementation Committee, it was established in 1986. Meets one time a month, usually the first Friday, but now because of furloughs, it is now the first Thursday of the month, from 9:30 to 3:30, and a break for lunch. It is subject to the Bagley-Keene Act, Open Meeting Act, and the meeting notices are posted 10 days prior to the meeting. It's an informal forum to vet issues and proposals that perhaps the State Allocation Board wants further input from stakeholders, so we try to keep it as informal as possible, yet try to be as courteous as possible to each of the members and also the stakeholders, and do our best to try to allow everyone to get their comments in and questions. And we have staff, OPSC staff, to answer questions, and we'll be presenting the items. And I would like at this time for the members, for those who are not familiar with the members of the IMP committee, if we can go around and introduce ourselves and note the agency or the entity that you are representing on the implementation board. Thank you.
Fred Yeager with the Department of Education.
Amy Starr, San Joaquin County Office of Education, representing the County Superintendents Association.
Dennis Dunstan, architect with Total School Solutions. I represent the Council of Educational Facility Planners International.
Bill Savage from the West Contra Costa Unified School District, representing the Coalition for Adequate School Housing, CASH.
Chris Ferguson, Department of Finance.
Juan Morales, representing the Office of Public School Construction.
Susan Rombach, Chair and Representative of the State Allocation Board.
Cesar Diaz with the State Building and Construction Trades Council.
Robert Pierce, Elk Grove Unified School District, representing suburban school districts.
Richard Conrad with the Division of the State Architect.
Okay. And I just wanted to note that Dave Tatsuno from the AIA will not be attending the implementation committee today. He sent his regrets. I'm sorry? Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, Dean. Dave Tatsuno. All right. Can we take up the minutes for the past, I believe we have May and July to be reviewed? Is there anyone that has a question or comment? Wow. And could you state your name? I guess, well.
Boy, this can be a lot of fun.
I know.
Lyle Smoot, representing Los Angeles Unified School District also. As regards the May 1 minutes, reading them carefully, I noted that with regard to the 160 or the 150% adjustment item, there was mention of the fact that OPSC had changed the application of that rule from the time of audit to the time of apportionment. It did not mention that there was a second change, that OPSC was not utilizing or referring to the fact that there had to be local funding involved in it, and I'd like to have that reflected in the minutes, that was also changed. I've got some proposals here, wording that I would think would satisfy that requirement. Obviously, if other wording would do, but I'd like to see something in the minutes reflecting the fact that that was also changed to the application of the rule by OPSC.
Okay, I believe you had indicated that a little earlier. I think we had a conversation the other day regarding that, and we have changed I think it's the June and the July minutes to reflect that. And
this morning? I mean,
Yeah,
When
actually,
was it
apologize. I
changed?
should have mentioned that before we got started. And I think that we have handouts back there, right? Staff with the
standouts too, huh?
yeah, standout staff we do have with those changes, Lyle. So they should be reflected on both the May and the June items to
Okay.
reflect those comments.
Well, let me take a look at those, and I'll leave this with you in
July, I'm
case
sorry.
it, you know.
okay, so it's
I'll
May,
let you know.
June, and July. Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right, thank you.
Madam Chair,
Yes.
I had a correction on the, the July 16th minutes.
Yes.
On page 10. We had been talking about the inclusion of soft costs in the additional grants for the accessibility. And on the third paragraph down, it indicates that it is excessive. The additional question was asked regarding whether the checklist includes the architect's estimate. That should be, it includes a soft cost, not just the architect's estimate.
Okay, which
I
paragraph
think
is that?
that's
I'm
the
sorry.
paragraph we're talking about. The third one down.
I think we have at the bottom of the page, Dennis, second to last paragraph, we also address the soft cost there. Is that in addition to that?
To the last paragraph?
Yeah. Bottom page 10.
You see that? Yeah, I don't see where you're, on but the bottom of page 10?
Yeah.
Try the top of page 11.
Oh, might be just the formatting.
Okay, we're covered, thanks.
I had a different
Thank you.
page on mine, sorry. So we're good with,
Does that satisfy?
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dennis.
I have a question, Susan. I wasn't here, but I understand that the question did come up, and perhaps not noted in the minutes, about the provision of replacement toilets and other facilities that were removed during an accessibility project, as to whether new building area or additional toilets could be provided. And the answer is no, upon further consultation with DSA, so if, that can be noted.
Yes, thank you, and we did receive your email quite promptly, and we appreciate your getting back to us on that, and apologize that it wasn't included in the minutes.
Madam Chair, I also have one
Yes.
more comment on the last, actually, it's the third to the last paragraph where it starts out, the OPSC staff stated. This indicates that over time, costs of accessibility for modernizations will go down, and that's not necessarily true. It could be true, but it's not necessarily true. Since the early 90s, when the ADA came out, there has been constant changes, and every time you go in for a plan check, there's things that were upgraded in the late 90s that now have to be upgraded again. So it's not necessarily true that they will go down.
Okay. Did we fix that?
Well, I'm sorry, is that just clarifying what was said at the last time? Yes. Okay. So the minutes reflect what was stated at the last meeting. You're just clarifying what was stated? I guess, yes. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm sorry, there was another gentleman that was, yes. Oh, okay, thank you. All right, any more comments on the minutes? Okay, hearing none.
Madam Chair?
Yes.
Before we begin with the item, I am looking at the pending items list, the very last page in the handout. And I just wanted to sort of explore how it is that something is placed on the pending items list and how it is that something rises to the top of the pending items list or stays at the bottom of the list indefinitely. And how changes in regulations that are substantive are proceeding with review that doesn't include the implementation committee, for example, the seismic program. And I don't understand how is the agenda for these meetings determined? And how could we influence that? Just a good example would be the one I just stated. The seismic program is under intensive review, and yet it's not being brought back to the implementation committee for any kind of discussion, and it's probably one of the most important issues for our school district in the entire state right now. So that's one piece. Second one is alternative education loading standards and funding has been at the bottom of the pending item list for over 2 years and has never risen at all. I'm just inquiring, why is that? How does one influence that?
Okay, well, since I have been here, it's usually been so far carryover items from prior implementation committee meetings or SAB meetings that the board has directed staff to look at in the implementation committee. As far as the pending items list, in our meetings to determine future items, one is, I can't tell you how they're selected actually, so I'll leave that up to Ron.
First of all, the alternative education loading standard, that's been on there for a while because I think we were waiting to collect more data. I think the last time that we brought it to the IMP, we didn't have enough to go on, so we've been waiting to collect more data. And just to clarify, it's a pending item list. Things may get added. I mean, it's not a hard set. It's just the things that we think are going to be coming up. Sometimes, items get brought forth because the board directed us to, or other things have come up. Seismic, that discussion, we recognize that it's important. I think that at this point, though, we all know that that's at the SAB level. It's being discussed. It has been at the last 2 board meetings. So those are ongoing discussions that are at the board. So these, you've seen them for a while because we intend to bring them back. Financial hardship, we discussed that maybe 1 or 2 meetings some time ago. So again, this isn't a hard set list. It's just what we think. If there's other things that come up, we're going to include them. They're not in any particular order.
All I'm trying to, I think the issue for me and for Cash is we want to have an ability to have input into this process, because it actually, if the committee can function and can have some input in what we consider, that it makes for a better process at the allocation board, so we don't have to get up and raise hell, so to speak. Sorry, webcast. But you know, we can do it here, and at least have some discussion. And so what I would propose actually is that maybe during each meeting we would take, during our IMP committee meetings, we might take a moment to talk about the next meeting's agenda and what items are coming up, and et cetera, something like that. Just trying to make the process a little bit more transparent and inclusive of the practitioners that are here and devoting their time to this.
And I think for the most part, we do bring things here before we take them to the board. I mean, generally speaking, I think we usually bring most of the, especially regulations that we take before the board, we do bring them before the committee to vet the issues. So, and I don't know, this may be something that you know, gets discussed in the rules subcommittee to create. I mean, there really isn't, you know, I guess this process was started as an informal process, so there's no hard set rules on how to do this. So,
Amy?
Mark's advising me to raise my hand and be ready to speak. In terms of the alternative education loading standards, one, you indicated that you're waiting to collect additional data. Since this is certainly of interest to county offices and school districts as well, is there some way in which we can help you collect the data, or what kind of data are you looking for? Is there some way that we can assist OPSC to be able to bring this forward?
it's been a while. I looked at it, but it's my understanding we're waiting for more projects to get closed out to get more data on that, on the audit side. I have to go back and take a look. It's been a long time since we discussed that item, but that was my understanding, was that we were going to wait for more projects to go through the closeout to find out what the actual costs were. But I can get more clarified information and give you some more information afterwards.
Thank you.
Yeah,
I think
been a
that
while. But I think
representing
that was
county
it.
offices, we would appreciate that, because we know there are some disconnects in terms of the loading that really need to be looked at. And I'm not sure that even coming back with the closeout cost data is what I'm assuming you're looking at relative to the type of facility that was constructed or the number of classrooms or grants used. So I think we would be prepared to discuss some of the issues, and then maybe that would help formulate where the data search should go.
We'll take a look, and we'll bring some more information on the status at the next IMP.
Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, any other comments or questions on this Bill's comments? Okay, I think it's a very, oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Just one comment. I want to agree with Bill. There is a piece of legislation right now moving forward on seismic, and having that discussion at the legislature but not having the discussion here, I think we're missing a big piece of that. So I would suggest that we do bring that up here and have the opportunity to discuss that item.
Well, it is slated for the next board meeting on, the state allocation board meeting on August 26th. If it's not put over. It has been put over a few times, I understand that, but per board direction, the board can always ask that the issue be brought back to, or various issues pertaining to the seismic, any specific issues that need vetting to come back to the IMP committee. That's their prerogative to do so. So, but I am saying that it is an agenda on the board item right now. So, yes.
I guess that speaks to Bill's question, which is, if we want something on this pending items,
yes.
do we have to lobby the board members?
No, I'm just saying,
I would like to see something a little more formal in terms of our discussion within the committee as well.
yes, I understand. I was, in closing, I wanted to comment that I appreciate Bill's comments, and I think they're fair comments, and I'd like to entertain them. I think it's, our goal is to promote transparency, and I think that's a good, that's a very good example of a way that we can do that. So, and after all, this is a forum for the stakeholders and to vet issues that the board doesn't necessarily have time on their agenda to help the OPSC staff formulate their analyses. So I'm very willing to entertain that.
Could I inquire, one of the items that's on here is the role of the implementation committee, and you made the comment about the rules subcommittee, right?
Rules and procedures, yes.
The rules and procedures. And is that subcommittee meeting, or are they scheduled a meeting?
Not yet. There are 4 members on the committee, 3 of them legislators, and so it's been a little difficult with their schedules to have some pre-meetings to discuss. I have met with the chair, Senator Weiland, on the issue, and at least 1 or 2 of the committee members as far as where they want to go with it and when they want to schedule a meeting. But I suspect that it won't be until they come back from break, and even then it's the end of session. So I'm trying hard to get that going.
I'm taking that a little bit further. Presumably, one item on their discussion might be the role of the implementation.
Yes, it is.
Okay.
Yes, it will be.
Well, so I wonder if it would be appropriate for us to have a discussion at our next meeting about what the members of the implementation committee and practitioners believe is the role of the committee, so we could provide some input into that process.
I think that's fair.
Okay. So I'd like to ask that that be placed on the agenda for the next meeting.
Okay.
Thank you.
That's fair. Thank you.
Can I just, and just having to take a look at the our other current workload. Don't really want to commit to next IMP, but we'll definitely make an effort.
You're going to get your furloughs canceled.
I didn't want to mention them, but yeah, that plays a part in this.
Chris can take care of you.
All right. Any more comments or questions on the minutes or the item before us or the question before us? Comments? All right. Let's go to the first and only agenda item, which is the accessibility and fire code requirements on modernization projects. This has been before the board the last meeting, and we're continuing at this meeting. And we have a summary at the very beginning that outlines the actions, the overview of the report that the staff gave to the state board and the board's actions and direction to staff. And so I'd like the presenters from OPSC to begin their presentation, and I'm really going to try to enforce this to allow the presenters to finish their presentation before we entertain any questions. Thank you.
I'll start it. Okay. So, good morning, everyone. At the last
I'm sorry,
meeting,
could you state your name for the...
I'm sorry, apologize. I'm Brigida Ball, and I'm one of the supervisors for Office of Public School Construction, and this is Matt Nicow, and he is one of the staff. At our last meeting, we discussed the excessive cost hardship grant, and we brought before you the proposed language that was drafted per the direction of the State Allocation Board from the August 2008 meeting. In addition to that, we also brought legislation, draft legislation to address replace for a like-kind area, and there was discussion with that, and there were some comments that were made, so we went back to the office and tried to do some revisions to address your concerns. So today we're here to discuss those concerns and the regulations, the proposed regulations for replace of like kind, to see if it addresses your needs. And I'm going to have Matt Nicow walk you through that regulation change.
Okay, so I'll start with the staff comments. It's on page 14. So your staff page 14. So we made some revisions, and we missed one additional revision. It's at the very end of the staff comments. It starts off, in order to comply. We would also like to strike out, it's the third line from the bottom. It's additionally, staff will present an alternative to the board's direction that would allow projects with replacement building area of like-kind construction and other modernization work. We'd like to strike out where it says and other modernization work. We think it may be a little confusing. And also, the attachments referenced at the very end, they currently say A and B, but they should say C and D. We did change the order of the attachments, and we forgot to change the labeling right there. There was an additional change that we made, and it's on the following page, alternative to the State Allocation Board's direction. We removed additional modernization work was also stated in here. We removed it to try and clarify it. What we're trying to get across. If anyone has any questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them at the very end. We also made...
Matt, I'm sorry. I'm going to break my own rule. We've just been joined by Mr. Gary Gibbs. He represents the California Building Industry Association. Welcome. Sorry, Matt.
Sorry. And we have also made revisions to attachments C and D. In attachment C, where you see bracketed number 3, that used to be the districts eligible for a modernization excessive cost hardship grant used to be 4. We did a strike through on number 3 based on input from the implementation committee and stakeholders. And in bracketed number 2, we removed before, where it starts with projects, it used to say in lieu of funding provided in 1. So we just started with projects to kind of streamline and clarify. And in attachment D, we made some revisions to also remove the wording in addition to other modernization work. And that's on page 4 of 9 of attachment D. Are there any questions to any of the revisions that staff has made?
That's basically what we had to present. The original proposed regulations stayed the same. It was just to remove the 3% options completely so that the 60% option would remain. So that is the one that the board had directed us to propose the language, and we did. And then this one is the one to also consider because of the replacement of like kind. Any comment?
So if I'm doing like-in-kind replacement, which we do a lot in our district, do I still, in other words, we're going to essentially build a brand new building to replace an old building, knock down the old one, build a new one. And do I still have to do a checklist, quote unquote?
If you're only requesting 3%, no.
No checklist requirement.
For like-kind replacement, no.
Okay. That's good, because it would be hard to do, as I'm sure Richard could share with us. But, okay, so I think as long as I'm understanding, but that's, when it says right here on page 4 of 9, attach a copy of the DSA approved list that shows the minimum work necessary for accessibility requirements, which is right after the, in lieu of this funding, blah, 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 may request a 3%. Is that consistent with what you're saying? that sentence? It sounds like it sounds like this is the checklist, that sentence, to me. And that sentence should be stricken. Should be, that's bad, sorry.
Yeah, that's only for the 60% that we would be requesting the checklist be. This attachment C and D is for the option of having, if the district has, having the option for like the option of requesting the 3%.
Whoa, it's confusing. Sorry.
We can look at that and possibly clarify.
Let me try to help. Marsha Lipsick, Office of Public School Construction. What if the sentences, the last two sentences, switched order?
Yeah, because
How's that?
if the 60% is what you need the checklist for, then that should be closer to that sentence. Okay.
So the two sentences change order.
Okay. Makes sense.
For further clarification there, after, I would agree with Masha, switch the order, and then after it says blah-de-blah 3% of the modernization grant, to make it very clear, no DSA list is required for this option.
No DSA checklist?
Checklist.
Okay.
So that when somebody's picking this up a year from now, they are clear. Bill, does that?
Yeah, no, I think it makes sense. I mean, the plans have to be approved by the Division of State Architect. They're going to contain all of the required accessibility components to meet the project, to meet the project. So, I mean, to me, it's fine. Anyway, I don't know what OPSC thinks about it.
I'll make the change.
All right, thank you, Mamie. Any other comments or questions from the audience?
Richard Gonzalez and Associates. It's a piggyback to what they're talking about here, but I'm thinking about it from the perspective of the regulations as well as the form. What I'm looking at is your attachment A, and I think that would also probably apply to attachment C, but I've got my note on attachment A, page 16, where F1, big A, where at the very end it references the modernization grants pursuant to 1859-79. I would ask that it would also include the references to 1859.79.2.A1. And the reason I'm saying that is, if I, as Mamie mentioned, is I'm looking at this 2-3 years from now, and I go back to implementation, particularly notes and background, and I see that the entire reference to the 3% has been deleted out of item number 2. Could there be someone's interpretation that there was an intent to completely eliminate that particular option? But if you put a comment up in the top portion referencing back to the like-for-like replacements in the regs, then it seems clearer to me.
Okay, thank you, Richard.
I'd like to second that. I mean, now that I'm directed toward the regulation, it looks as though the 3% is being completely stricken from the regulation portion.
This is attachment A. Attachment A and B is to completely remove the 3% option. Right. There is no 3% for like, or for, and it's only the 60% option. Attachments C and D reference that there's a 60% option, and in addition to that, there is a 3% option for replacement of like-kind projects.
Attachment A and B is based on the proposed regulations that the board had directed us to draft back in August of 2000.
These are options, right?
Yes.
No, it's either. No, they're not options. Because the board's...
either one of them or the other one.
Well, the board's direction was for us to bring forward the first one for attachment A and B, and then C and D is what we are developing for the committee to bring forward to the board.
Thank you.
For discussion.
Okay.
And that was as a result of input from the last committee. Yeah. Okay. Yes, Lyle.
Camera? Okay, camera on me. I want to get into that whole issue of the fact that the Lyle Smoot, LAUSD, of the fact that the 3% option is being deleted from modernization projects, and the I'll use the term draconian effect that has on access compliance costs. With the 3% option, if you look at someplace back here, there's a worksheet that shows the amount of money that you get under each option. Currently, if a district has up to $178 worth of access compliance works, and I'm looking on this page 21, I don't know if that's the stamp page or what it is. Example of the 3% option calculation in the middle of the page there. Everybody on page 21?
Okay, is it number, which number? Number 3.
Yeah, example 3, example of, number 3, example of the 3% calculation. Under this rule, if a district spent $178 per pupil on access compliance, the state would provide that money, the first $178. Is that right, Dennis? Well, I think you had to submit under the new rules, you had to submit an estimate that showed you're going to spend at least $178. Then you got up to $178. Now, you're going to have to spend, looking at number 2, you're going to have to spend 416 local dollars before you can have any state dollars. So instead of getting the first $178 from the state, now you're going to have to spend 416 local dollars before you can have access to any money from the state. Okay, that's one major change there. The second part of it is, and the one that's even worse, is that under this rule, the district gets no assistance and is not left with any money to pay the soft costs associated with the additional access compliance work above, I'm not even sure about whether it's above or including the $416, but at any rate, whatever you spend above, I can guarantee you for sure, the $416, all of the money, state and local money that's available is going to construction costs. There's no money to pay for soft costs. So in addition to the $416 you're going to have to spend, now you're going to have to either take more money out of your regular apportionment to pay for the soft costs, and I don't know how that works, associated with this part of the project, or you're going to have to put up local dollars in excess of that, just meaning more, this district is going to have to pay more local dollars for the access compliance piece of the project than they should. And that's really going to, it's a really big problem. In addition to that, you know, the board, when they took the 2006 action, also asked the staff to include in the analysis when it came back in, I think it came back in 2008, information regarding how much of the access compliance costs the district was still paying for over and above the allowance that was being provided with the 60% calculation. And that information hasn't been analyzed. So we don't know, and the board does not know, and I think the board needs to know how all of these things fit together, and in addition, they need to know how much money a district is already paying over and above even the 60% allowance, and those things aren't here. And I think it's really difficult, at least for me, to have a complete discussion without an analysis that shows these ramifications. In other words, number one, the district is now going to have to pay the first 416, whereas before they got help with the first 178. Secondly, whatever the district gets above the 100 or the 416 will not, there will be no allowance for soft costs included in the funding anyplace. So the district's going to have to come up with additional dollars for those things in addition. And I don't think the board was fully apprised of these facts in the 2006 analysis. So when the board said, bring us back a choice, and don't disagree that that was part of the board's action, right. I don't think the board fully understood exactly what was happening. And I think it's important that they first understand that and for that matter, understand the ramifications of what the current policy does before you can have a complete discussion about whether you should do away with the 3% or not.
Okay, I think we noted in the last implementation committee there was comment about the stakeholders getting the information a day before, the night before, the day of. The state allocation board, so stakeholders weren't given the opportunity to properly prepare a response to the report. So that was duly noted, and I believe in this analysis there is a discussion that that will be brought up at the board. The issue of perhaps keeping the status quo, and that's what we will report that was talked about at the IMP committee and was a suggestion by the IMP committee and the stakeholders.
Yeah, I would hope that discussion would take place before any conversation at the board level about doing away with this one, so that they get a complete picture of how the policies interplay before they make a decision as to whether they really meant do away with one or the other.
Okay. One more thing. If it's my understanding that, and I'm not saying this is the answer to the issue, but if you could explain to me, and perhaps staff can help me also, that 7%. There's a 7% set aside for
the base grant.
This is for access in modernization grants.
In the discussions on this. Originally, it was determined, and a lot of us disagree with this, but it was determined that 7% of the school facility program grant was intended for use with accessibility and fire code. And there's really no basis for that. That was just something that came out of the discussions, and therefore that 7% is being subtracted out of what the grant should be.
And that was, sorry, through the chair.
Oh, go ahead.
That was part of the item that we had. We also had the tables, just like you have on the IMP item now. We had similar ones at the August 2006 board item, which showed the breakdown of, the 3%, the 60%, and how the calculation. It was actually almost identical to what you see in your IMP item now. So that was brought before the board. They did have that. They also were aware of the concerns that were raised by the IMP members in terms of soft costs. That was also noted on the item that was presented to the board in terms of should there be allowed, should it be included. We included those comments, we included those concerns, and at that time it was our position that the 7% that we think from the mod base grant that's designated for accessibility is 7% of not just the hard cost. It's 7% of hard costs and soft costs. So part of that 7% includes or has soft costs embedded already in there. And that was part of the discussion, well, part of the item that we presented to the board. So these are issues that have been brought up before the committee, actually before we went to the board, and were also presented to the board. So I just wanted to make sure that the committee members are aware that this has been and was included in the board item that was presented to the board when they heard and took action on the item.
All right, thank you, Juan.
I don't completely disagree with that statement, Juan, but what I do disagree with is that there were statements made at the board, and you're almost making the same statements today, that somehow or other the money that was already in the project for soft costs is available and has already been paid against these things, and there's no additional soft cost involved here. and those are inaccurate statements. There is soft costs involved in that, and there isn't. In other words, going back to what Dennis is saying, I believe, again, this is the picture that I saw, that the state was saying, we'll give you up to $178 additional. Over that, the next $416 has to come out of your base allowance. Okay, so if it was only 178, you got 178. As you went above that, it came out of your allowance, but that was limited at $416. One, the 40% money is available to pay the soft costs on the 416 and the 178, no argument. But when you go above the 178, there's no soft cost money. It's gone. And you know, I can sit down with you because these are so technical and hard to see. I understand that piece of it. That it's hard to see that there's no soft cost money for anything above the 416 and maybe the 178. I'm not sure about that. But definitely the 416, yes, the soft cost money is there. Absolutely.
Okay.
Once you go above that, soft cost money is gone.
All right, thank you.
Now, I understand it was presented, but the point I'm making is that at the State Allocation Board, when these things were discussed, there were statements made that somehow or other the soft costs had already been incurred and that there was no need to have soft costs involved in it, and it was a very confusing conversation. And I do not believe the board members understood at the time. I don't think that everybody fully understands right now that when you go above the 416 and the 178, there's no soft cost money, period. Whether it's the state match or the local match, it's gone. Okay.
Well, we'll note again the concerns in the item.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Len.
Just so I think try to understand what you're saying. Is it as simple as saying DSA verifies the work, so you have a cost for that? That's a hard construction cost, obviously. OPSC is only giving you 60% of that cost. You have to fund the other 40%. So by definition, the grant's supposed to cover hard costs and soft costs. That's inherent in the grant amount. In this case, you're only getting 60% of the hard construction cost because all they're looking at is what DSA is verifying in hard construction costs and giving you 60% of that. That's right?
Another way to say it.
Okay.
Same thing. Okay.
Just I want to make sure I understand that.
Thank you.
I have one other issue. I think this is something that I brought up last time. In the center chart on page 21, the center example, the $5,000, it says over on the right-hand side, the cap. That refers to the cap that is 50% of the state and local new construction grant amount. Is that correct?
Yeah.
I would just like to point out that that is an arbitrary number that is being used, and actually, it's not arbitrary, it's incorrect. The total amount of the state and local grants is not 50% of the replacement value for the project as is indicated in Title 24. It is much lower than that, and therefore I think this cap is considerably less. The cap is less than it should be. In a case like this, you know, I don't see any reason why it couldn't go up to the full $5,000.
Okay.
Questions or comments on that? I'm sorry. Any questions or comments?
No, we'll take another look. Again, and that was part of the same item that was in August 2006 board item. We can take another look and we'll take another look. And again, I just want to emphasize that we're not bringing this forward to the first time. This was presented and taken before the board. That was part of the item. So again, we'll take another look. I mentioned this before. At this point, after the discussions, we are taking the regulations to go with one of the options in terms of 3% or 60%, and in some cases, both in replacement area like kind. we will note these other concerns that have come up in the committee, but I think that the main objective here was to comply with the board's directive to write regulations. So we'll do that, and we'll also note these concerns.
Juan, if I could, if that is the staff's direction from the board, that you only look at this one item, then can we go to one of the things that Bill was talking about earlier? Could we agendize these other two issues for a future meeting to discuss these?
Yeah, well, when we take it to the board, we'll have that. I mean, again, we're going to note the concerns at the board. And yeah, the board can say, well, you know what, this is fine, but go back and re-examine these other things that are of concern. But I think at this point, the objective here was to just go with the regulations for the 3%. We would not present that to the board, and then the board could direct us to come back and discuss other areas within the accessibility and fire code grants. Yeah, we can certainly do that.
Any other questions or comments regarding this item? Okay, I know, my goodness.
It's a record.
Okay, I just wanted to, if I can, recap the attachments A and B outline the language per board direction that would eliminate the 3% option. And items, or attachments C and D, represent language that would allow a choice between the 3% or 60% for any modernization project that is a like-for-like or a modernization and like-for-like. Is that accurate?
Yes.
Okay. And the issues that the stakeholders and the membership of the IMP committee would like to address are the issues of soft costs, whether or not they're included, to also have a discussion on the whether to maintain the status quo, which means allow districts to choose either the 3% or the 60% option, which was not. Which does not have language at this time, and but the stakeholders and the IMP committee would like that issue to be included in the agenda item that's brought to the board, and the issue of the cap and whether or not it's adequate and should actually be higher based on current state and local contributions and costs. Does that sum up the issues?
Just for a point of clarification, the 3% or the 60% is already in existence, so it would just be to just leave it.
I think I said the status quo. Yeah, I'm sorry, I probably didn't talk into the microphone.
It's okay.
All right, thanks, Vijay. All right. I can't believe this. Okay. I think we're finished with this item for now, and for the next implementation committee meeting, we, in the interim, we will be having conversations. We'll have discussions regarding the checklist for new facility hardship request and the appeal request form, and perhaps it might be an expanded item at that time. And I would also like to acknowledge Bill's recommendation that future items be discussed at among the membership and the stakeholders at the meeting prior. So, and discuss the priorities of the stakeholders in the board, in the implementation committee. So, any final comments before we adjourn?
I would just like to thank staff for bringing those other two options. I know it was a long discussion last month, so I did appreciate seeing those other two options presented, so thank you for that.
Yes, Mark. I'm sorry.
I know there was a last-minute change in the agenda.
Yes.
But I would
Appreciate-
request that if
yes.
it's at all possible, that you
Email.
email
Yes, I
committee
understand.
members.
Yes, I
If
understand.
you did it last night or early this morning, I probably could have avoided a trip.
Yeah, I understand that. Yeah, I apologize, and I realize that people base their schedules on what is on the agenda. If they've already made plans and it's canceled, that's an extreme
I'd like
hardship.
to second that, too.
Apologies.
I mean,
Yes.
I think it's, our time's valuable.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is. I understand you have other things to do. All right. Again, just wanted to mention that for the webcast, the email address is, now I can find it for you, is sab-imp@dgs.ca.gov for comments and questions at home. And we appreciate your watching and attendance, and our next meeting is, remind me, somebody? September 3rd?
Susan?
Our next meeting, Implementation Committee, anybody? Is it?
Susan, procedural question?
Yes.
How do the email pieces work? In other words, if someone sends in a comment via the email, how does that come forward in this meeting format?
Okay, what we're going to try to do is for the comments that come in, and we have staff monitoring it after the agenda is posted or the notice is put out, and if it's received we're going to try for the comments and suggestions that are received by 5 p.m. before the day of the committee, we're going to try to address them here.
So then I take it there weren't any received for this meeting then?
No. All right, thank you. And then they have the opportunity, based on the conversations and the questions and dialogue here, to ask additional questions or clarifying questions. And we'll take them into consideration also in drafting the item.
So then our meeting format actually should have an opportunity then, as we bring things to closure as it goes along, to really ask, is there any new email information or whatnot, so that they can be brought forward here? In other words, can people still send in email things during the course of the meeting?
Yes, but we can't do it live, and I'm understanding it's partially because of the Bagley-Keene. Is that? There's an issue with Bagley-Keene of doing it live.
So then the guys over there aren't getting these on their screen where
No.
they could read them to us?
No.
Okay. So then we would have at a subsequent meeting, we'd be picking up things from a prior meeting that came in on the email?
Well, actually, the staff will be picking them up and addressing them as we would address comments and questions that we receive here at the meeting.
Maybe you could clarify that. I mean, you can certainly, on a talk show, right? They receive email comments. I'm sure these two guys know how to do it. They're holding back. I haven't got a clue. But, I mean, it would be, I think, in the interest of participation, and, part of what we're all looking at is the inability to travel.
Right,
And
exactly.
if you can sit there at your computer and type something in, and, he gets it, and then he can, bring it over to you or whatever.
Right.
That kind of input is certainly, it happens all the time in the
Okay,
private sector.
okay,
So
we'll
if we could
see what
look
we can
into
do.
that,
We're
that'd be
just
great.
kind of working through this. We're trying to do the best we can. Yes, that's right. We're going to have a few lumps here.
Would it be possible
Yes.
for the minutes of the meeting to reflect any emails and responses?
Yes, that's fair.
Well, actually, I was just going to talk about that. Since we're now having the webcast, we're not going to have minutes from now on. You're going to have the webcasts are going to be archived. You're going to be able to have access to them. So there is really no need It'll be fine. You'll be on video.
All right, thank you. All right, anything else? September 3rd? Could somebody?
I don't have the calendar. Check our
All right.
website, please. I
All
think
right,
it might be the following week. I'm not sure.
Yeah, the
This
first
September.
Thursday of the month. Thank you.
Oh, is it?
Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Gonzalez again.
Oh. Okay, I lied.
Did I-
Sorry. I lied. Just wanted to know if you were paying attention.
I was.
I'm sorry,
Thank
Richard.
you. Juan, did I hear right? You're not going to provide any more minutes on any of these meetings?
Yes.
The,
Because you're going to have the ability to see the video online. It's going to be archived, so it's better than the minutes. It's going to be all there.
but when you write the minutes up, you capture a lot of what the OPSC's perceptions and views of what the committee has presented, gives us a feeling about the understanding and how that progresses. It gives us a chance to look at these comments and then realize whether they are. If you only have it on webcam and webcast, that's a much more difficult situation. I mean, we still have minutes for the state allocation board. We still have transcriptions for the state allocation board. I don't know why we wouldn't have some form of a summary of what was accomplished in the last meeting.
Well, the minutes are to reflect what was said, summarizing what was said. I don't think that the minutes would do the actual events justice. If you have the actual video, how could you not capture what was said? Or how could you better capture it in the minutes instead of seeing it on video? I'm not sure.
I'm not going to argue that the webcasting actual documentation is not better than a summary report. But I can share that by reading these summary minutes, I do capture, in my mind, the fact that some of the comments that were made were truly understood by staff and they've done something and presented something. You know, a good example is this comment that were made about the inclusion of the like-for-like replacement somehow in a language. To listen to the minutes and listening to the webcast, I don't know that I would get that same kind of warm fuzzies, if I will say that, about the direction everything's taking. So I would ask that you still do some form of a summary of the understanding of what went on in the meeting.
Richard, I'd like to respond to that in two ways. First of all, you know, we have limited resources and limited time. And secondly, they are coming back with regulations that are very crystal clear in response to the discussions we have. So I think we respond to those. It's just, you know, making more work in this time, I just think, you know, they have a lot of other things to do. But they are drafting up something cogent that we will be responding to at the next meeting, which is the regulation. And that's fairly clear what they're saying now.
I'm going to agree with Gary, sort of. I mean, I think I would agree with the following. We're asking the staff to do more with less. And that's just the way it is in California, and it's the way it is in school districts, too. If there's a way that we can reduce a paperwork burden, like removing DSA checklists. Oh, anyway, never mind. I know, we tried. But anyway, that would have been good. But I think, I'm not sure what they bring forward is always crystal clear, but at least I would have to say they brought a number of options forward this time that reflected the discussion and what they heard. And so, in a sense, the work product that's presented to us and the work product that's presented to the board is a reflection of what OPSC hears. I'd like to think we could give it a try and see if it's still working. And I mean, the flip side of what the flip side of this, of course, for you saying how important the minutes are and that they reflect what our discussion is, the cynical view of the minutes is all they are is a tool for us to beat them up about what they didn't include in the minutes. Or there's certainly a lot of discussion about what's not in the minutes at various points too. So I'd say we give it a try and focus on what the work product that's presented to us in the item is, and making sure that that reflects what the discussion was. Anyway.
I would concur with Bill, but I think what Susan has been doing at the end of the meeting is very useful, and that's saying, okay, I captured this and this and this and this, and it gives all of us, staff and the rest of us, an opportunity to really look at it. And so maybe we spend a little bit more time at the end of our discussions and do those maybe even incrementally, so that we shut down. When we're done discussing one thing, we're done and we don't keep coming back to it. And then maybe we can take our own notes that reflect Susan's discussion, or we can pull that up on the video and we can write down what that summary was. So I think we should give it a try.
Okay, appreciate that. Thank you, Richard. Okay, anything else? Okay, this time I mean it.